Welcome to the Magic of Painting, Season 2. Thank you for tuning back in. This is going to be a real short little video. I'm going to set up my canvas or my palette. We're going to jump into kind of the middle of a painting that I'm doing that features Sedona, and well, I've wanted a lot of texture, a lot of texture for this area. A lot of you know the stones and different things that are on Bell Tower and the Craggies. I call them the Craggies, the nooks and Craggies of Bell Tower, and also in the foreground, some of the um, the rising up of the foreground area. We'll get into talking about the painting later, but I wanted to look at one of Michael Harding's many magic mediums that he has. This one is that we're going to be using, that I'm going to show some mixing with, and we'll get into putting it on the palette later. But basically, this is his magic miracle medium beeswax paste. And we're going to use some of that, and we're going to use some of the colors here as well. I have some yellow, cadmium yellow. There we go. There you can see my yellow. I'm going to put down some of Michael's ultramarine blue. Yeah, mixing is fun. And a lot of people, when you first start, you kind of struggle with getting the right color that you want. If you move to a limited palette, and then move up from a limited palette to other groupings of colors within that limited palette. This is Michael's titanium white. And also came in the mail with some more titanium white. So going to have fun painting in the next few weeks, and also recording some of the episodes for season 2. I'm going to switch from my typical um, alizarin and go with some of these guys. So the Indian red and the burnt sienna. So we'll put some of that out on there. So my palette is basically for this painting is really heavy into the Indian red and the burnt siennas and the yellows and purples that we'll see. I've been struggling with playing with the sky a lot, so um, you'll get to see some of that as well. So I'm just going to start here for right now. And we're going to open up the Miracle Medium Beeswax paste. There are different warnings and things like that. Like this is mixed with a little bit of turpentine, so you may hear in the background. I have an air cleaner going on. So this is really looks wonderful, doesn't it? Looks like butter. Don't eat it. So you can see it's not very palatable. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit just because it's probably been sitting on the shelves, but you can see as I'm mixing it how gorgeous this is. Well, this is going to be fun to work with. Even though the warnings say to be careful because it's it has a smell to it. It doesn't really smell all that bad, actually. I don't can't smell it at all. So I'm just going to put some of this. I'm not even going to put that much. Remember, you can always come back and get more. So I'm just going to put a little bit here. You see that there? Okay, there we go. And I'm going to use that to mix up some colors that I want to put on the bell tower, the nooks and craggies, if you will. Okay, so this will dry to a matte base. It'll take a little longer to dry, but that's okay. So you see I closed it up. I'm going to set it aside. Make sure that you don't sit it in direct sunlight. So I'm using, like I said, reds and purples. I'm going to put this in here. And you want to kind of sneak up on this. So I don't want a lot. So you basically, it's a 1 to 9. One part of the beeswax to, it's probably a little too much, um, 9 parts, so more oil paint, if you will, to um, the beeswax. So just have a little bit of fun. I'm going to put a touch of titanium white in this and a touch of the ultramarine blue. And I want to mix all of that together. You can see how easy it mixes. I want this to be a little bit bluer. So you just basically do your typical mixing. And you can kind of see if I spread it real thin, you can kind of see the beeswax there. This is pretty much color that I want to use. I'm going to take just a touch of my yellow. I'm going to come back in and grab some more of the beeswax. There we go. Now I'm starting to see that craggy color that I want. I'm gonna put a little bit more. So you just play with it until you get the right consistency. See if I can really stand that up. Yeah, that works. That looks really good. In a darker area. Yeah, I think this is going to be working out just the way I want it to. Michael's products, I never doubt him. I never doubt Michael. Let's just throw it all in there. Let's see what happens, right? Can always go get more. It's just not quite the texture I want. This is going to be much better. So you can see how much more, how it stands up more. That's what I'm looking for. See how it just blocked off all together? That is so cool. Yay. I'm going to have fun with this. I can already see that. Okay, so now I'm going to use a purple. So I'm going to use the rest of my ultramarine that I took out. I'm going to use the burnt sienna, a touch of the Indian red, not as much, but just a touch of the Indian red, and a nice amount of the beeswax. Oh, look at that. That's so cool. And you can see the difference between the two colors is a little darker. Probably need a little more of that Indian red and the burnt sienna are very high in pigment, and they're more opaque than the ultramarine blue. I could actually change it to a different color blue if I wanted to. We have like his indigo and some of his other colors that would actually go nicely in there too. But I'm sticking with the palette that I started with. Nice, nice dark color for the areas on the shaded side. So if you compare the two together, there you go. Area here. I'm going to take a little bit of white. This is one of the things I love doing with Michael's paints. So there's a lot of pigment that's down here. And I just want to kind of clean that up. Look at this beautiful color. You can use that in the clouds. If I decide to put clouds back in, my concern with that is that the clouds will end up taking away from the where I want their eye to go in the painting. So it's a nice way to clean your palette a little bit. You get a nice contrasting lighter color. So maybe I want some of that lighter blue to hit into the topper or upper areas of the craggy. Could be used in the clouds. So I'm going to take the burnt sienna now and probably the rest of the cadmium yellow that I have there. I'm going to put some of this, more of the beeswax in there. And put a little bit more just because I want to see how thick I can make this stuff. Look at that. Oh, look at how it just stands up. Yeah. I know, I'm a weirdo. I like things that, look at that. That's so cool. Okay, so we got pretty much, I'm gonna put a touch of Indian red, just a touch, just ever so little bit, just to get that a little more red in there. So with Michael's beeswax, you just continue to add till you like the texture that it's going to be, which I do at this point. I'm gonna move this over here. It's like icing in it. No, you didn't use a mixer. So cool. Okay. And I want to put a little more texture in this area here, all through here, and then down here in the foregrounds. So we're playing with, when you store the beeswax paste, you want to make sure that it's not in direct sunlight, that the lid is on very tightly. Going to be using palette knife, come into the very blue area. That is exactly what I was looking for. So I really feel kind of like I'm sculpting at this point. And I work dark to light, so I can always come back. And add that in. So really all I'm doing is just dabbing, pulling up. I'm going to pull this in really close. Just barely touching the canvas. And I'm letting it, like icing, just form up to peaks. A cavern, more or less, the dark area that sits back. Doesn't get quite as much light, but maybe it's another little craggy little nook hiding in there. I can always come back and add in other colors. That's the one thing about the area of Sedona that we were in. It has so many colors in it, so many pretty colors, especially at nightfall and in the morning, early morning. You can tell I'm painting mostly with my palette knife. I started this one with a brush. I didn't catch that on camera. We weren't filming at the time. I just wanted to kind of get the basics. This is, very impasto-ish painting. It's always fun. If you're in a little bit of a rut and you're not sure, what could get you out of your rut, just do something different. I wanted to experiment with texture here, and that's what's happening. And I'm having fun learning. I'm actually learning on camera. Double brave thing to do, right? But if I make the mistakes, you'll be able to learn from them. So that's probably pretty nice. I'm going to throw this color up in here a little bit, back down in there. So aside from using the colors and the light and the dark to talk about a little bit of texture in each of them, in each area, basically, I'm just building with this. Always come back and glaze, lay more color on. Very blue color here, which is fine because I'm going to come back with this kind of grayish, purplish gray color. It's always the fun with palette knife. You can always scrape it off or relay it down. Okay. It's got a little too blue, so I just remixed more of one that's a pure Indian red with a little bit of the, not much because I'm going to end up grabbing it on the thing, but the gray purple. I'm going to be kind of mixing it in here. Look at that. Look at how cool that is. Oh, so nice. So one thing that you need to be thinking of when you're mixing up additional colors on your palette when you're painting is, you're changing that ratio of how much texture, how much of that beeswax that you have in there. So you might need to open the beeswax up and put a little more on your text on your palette so that you can mix it in with the colors that you're mixing up. So I'm really, I always wanted to try sculpting, but never had the nerve. But this is very much like sculpting on your painting. I'm going to mix in some of the yellow in here as well. This is an area that kind of doesn't have a lot of the indentation and texture. Um, but it still has some texture. So it's not as much as the areas above it. Just look how that much texture's in oh, that's lovely. We never know. There may be little shorter peaks in there. Look at your pictures. Remember in your mind what you saw if you were there like I was. If you watched other things, you notice that when I palette knife, I always usually kind of drag my knife with the paint on it. And, I'm really not doing that. Really just loading up my brush or loading up my knife and tapping that down, putting where I want that texture to be and kind of tapping up and down. Come back with the yellow and just kind of tap on it on the higher peaks areas. You can wait for it to dry if you don't have a lot of confidence to do that. But I'm really just kind of exploring at this point. I don't see what happens when I do certain things. So, this might be an area down here that's getting more light than the area above it. It'll really make it feel like it's sitting up. There's one area that's kind of like a landslide-ish area that that's where I'm messing around in right now. It's flatter, doesn't have as much of the texture to it. I'll come back and put the trees back in that area. But for right now, I'm just gonna continue to work. Since this is the mountain that is, or the tower is the closest to us, yeah, I can see a lot of texture on that. Back here, we won't want as much texture. We really want this to stand out to us as we go down further. So I pull back a little bit. So we started out with Michael's beeswax and mixture and is mixing up some paints. And you can really see the texture in this area. And like I said, you just go back and forth. Areas that seem too blue, just kind of mix them around. I let some of that blue poke through. That's pretty much it. You can see the difference in the texture and the sculpting that we were doing real quickly through here. How soft and untextured things around it are. Since I want the majority of the attention to be on Bell Tower, we'll probably let the texture be that way, be that thick. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.